They say art is only for the young. Bold colors, loud ideas, fast fame. But what if art lives in silence? What if it grows in the quiet hours, after your children have gone, after your hands have aged, and your voice is softer than it used to be? When my granddaughter looked me in the eye and said, "Grandma, you do not understand art," she had no idea that the canvas had been my diary long before she was even born. This is a story about paint, pain, and power, about how one woman stopped hiding her heart behind closed doors. Because sometimes the truth is not spoken, it is painted. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe. Because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Grace Emerson. I am 62 years old. I live in a small white house on a quiet street in Oregon. There is a willow tree in the front yard, and every spring, it fills the sky with soft green leaves that dance like ribbons in the wind. I wake up early each morning. I make tea, Earl Grey with a slice of lemon. Then I sit by the kitchen window with my sketch pad. I draw shapes, faces, sometimes only lines. It calms me, even when the drawings go nowhere. My daughter, Caroline, lives 15 minutes away. She is always busy. She runs a business and has 2 children. Her youngest, Mia, is 16 years old. Mia is smart, opinionated, and loves all things modern. Sometimes I feel like I am from a different world. When I talk about books or quiet walks, she talks about digital art and viral videos. When I speak about patience, she speaks about speed. Still, we are close. Or so I thought. My days are simple. I paint in my studio, a small sunroom I turned into a creative space. It is filled with old brushes, jars of dried paint, and unfinished canvases. I never showed them to anyone. Not really. Not fully. My life is slow and peaceful. Until one afternoon. Everything begins to change. It starts with a visit from Mia. She walks into my studio, looks around at the walls, and says, "Grandma, you do not understand real art." She laughs. Just a little. Like it is a joke. But her words stick to my chest like thorns. I look at the canvas behind her, a piece I had been working on for 3 weeks. It is soft and dark and full of emotion. But to her, it is nothing. Smile. I nod. I say nothing, but inside, something moves. I could feel something changing. After Mia left that day, I walked back into the studio alone. The air still carried her perfume, light and sweet. But it also carried something else. A tension. A silence that did not feel like peace. I looked at the painting she had mocked. It was not meant to impress. It was not meant to shock or sparkle. It was only meant to speak, softly, to whoever might listen. But she did not listen. She saw nothing in it. And perhaps she saw nothing in me. I put down my brush that evening. I washed my hands, though they were not dirty, and I sat in the sunroom long after the sun had gone. I stared at the blank canvas beside me. I wanted to paint something new, but the colors in my heart felt wrong. That night, I could not sleep. I kept hearing her voice in my mind. "Grandma, you do not understand real art," I whispered back, just to myself. What is real art? The next morning, Caroline called. She asked if I could pick Mia up after her art class. I said yes, of course. When I arrived at the school, I saw students carrying strange things. Digital tablets, bright sculptures made of plastic and glass, even a large canvas painted with QR codes. I could not help but stare. Mia walked out last. She was laughing with a friend. When she saw me, her smile faded a little, not with anger, not with dislike, but with something else, maybe embarrassment. She got in the car and I asked how her class went. She shrugged. It is fine. We are preparing for the gallery show next month. I nodded. That sounds exciting. She looked out the window. They are choosing one student to feature at the show. Someone who really understands art. Her words were sharp, but they were not meant to hurt. They were just her truth. And maybe that was what hurt the most. At dinner that night, I sat, alone. I looked at my studio door but did not open it. I made tea. I read a little, but even the words on the page felt distant. Before bed, I stood at the mirror. My reflection looked tired. Older than yesterday. I ran my fingers over the lines on my face. Each one held a story. Each one had been earned. And yet, to Mia, I was just someone from a time before real art. I did not cry, but I felt something press behind my eyes, a kind of quiet ache. The next morning, I visited my old friend, Clara. She is 70, kind, and has a garden that sings. She made us chamomile tea and asked how I was. I told her about Mia's words. I told her about the painting, about the silence, about how I felt like a faded photograph. She listened. She nodded. And then she said something simple. Maybe she does not know what you carry. I blinked. What do you mean? Clara smiled gently. I mean, maybe Mia cannot see the whole picture, because you have not shown it to her. I laughed. Softly. Why would she care about my old paintings? Clara looked at me with those wise eyes. Because they are not old paintings. They are you. I went home thinking about that. And as I walked past the studio door, I felt something strange. It was not sadness. It was not anger. It was the sense that something was beginning to shift. I could feel something changing. I woke up before the sun. The sky outside was still a deep blue, the kind of blue that feels like it holds its breath. I lay in bed with my hands folded on my chest, thinking about what Clara had said. Maybe she does not know what you carry. Those words stayed with me. They whispered to me as I made tea. They followed me into the sunroom. They stood beside me as I looked at the paintings I had not touched since Mia's visit. I picked up a brush, but my hand did not move. The canvas felt like a stranger. Something had shifted, and I did not know what it was. For so many years, painting was mine. A quiet world where I could feel without speaking, where I could be more than just mom or grandma. It was the place where I could become myself again. But now I felt uncertain. Was I only painting shadows? Were my colors too dull? Was I out of step with the world? At breakfast, I looked through old sketchbooks. There were drawings of Caroline when she was little, paintings of my husband, Edward, before he passed, landscapes from trips I could barely afford back then. Each one held a piece of my life. I ran my fingers along the pages and felt something like grief. Not for what I had lost, but for what I had buried. Later that day, I walked into town. The art supply store was still there, though it had moved to a smaller location. I had not been inside for years. The woman behind the counter was young, maybe in her 20s. She had purple hair and wore earrings shaped like little cameras. She smiled at me. "Looking for anything special today?" I paused. "I am not sure yet." She nodded like she understood. I wandered through the aisles, touching things. Soft pastels, smooth canvas rolls. A small jar of gold paint caught my eye. Gold, not flashy, but warm, quiet, strong in its own way. I bought it. I did not know why. That evening I called Caroline. Mia mentioned a gallery show, I said. I would love to come see her work. There was a pause on the line. Well, Caroline said slowly, they are still deciding who will be featured. But you are welcome to come. Mia might be surprised. I hung up the phone, feeling even more uncertain. Why would Mia be surprised? Was she ashamed of me? Or had I really become invisible in her world? I stood at the kitchen sink, watching the last light fade from the sky, and I whispered to no one. I do not understand what happened. When did I become the person who does not belong? I felt confused, not just about Mia, but about myself. Had I let too much time pass? Had I hidden too much of who I was? The wind outside rustled the willow leaves. It sounded like a question I could not answer, so I poured myself another cup of tea and sat by the window again. This time, with the gold paint beside me, still unopened. It was Saturday morning. The house was quiet as usual. I boiled water for tea and watched the steam rise. It danced in the soft light, like something alive. I thought about calling Mia, but I did not. I was not sure what I would say. Instead, I walked into the studio. I opened the small jar of gold paint. It shimmered, even in the gentle morning light. Not loud, not bright, just present. I dipped a brush into it, and I made a single stroke across the canvas. It looked like sunlight. I smiled. It was the first time I had smiled in days. Later that day, Caroline called again. She said they were having a family dinner that evening. Just the four of us. Caroline, Peter, Mia, and me. I agreed to come. When I arrived, Mia opened the door. She did not hug me, but she smiled a little. That was something. The table was already set. Chicken, rice, and salad. Nothing fancy, but warm. It reminded me of Sundays from long ago. Caroline poured us each a glass of sparkling water. She talked about work. Peter talked about a new contract. I nodded politely, but my eyes kept drifting toward Mia. She looked tired, not in the way that sleep could fix. In the way that comes from pressure, from trying to prove something, from trying to be someone. After dinner, I helped clear the table. When I brought the plates into the kitchen, Mia followed me. She stood next to me at the sink, quiet, still. Then she said, "Grandma, do you ever feel like you are not good enough?" The plate slipped in my hand, but I caught it. I looked at her. Her eyes were not mocking now. They were open, raw. I took a breath. "Yes," I said. "More times than I can count." She nodded. eyes fixed on the floor. "I want to be chosen for the gallery show," she whispered. "But everyone else's work looks so modern. Mine feels small." I felt something shift in my chest. "Mia," I said softly, "art does not have to be loud to be strong. Some of the deepest truths are painted in silence." She looked up at me. "But what if no one understands it?" I touched her arm. "Then you must understand it first, and love it enough to let them catch up." For a moment, we stood there. No sound but the running water. Then she said, "I saw your painting the other day. The one with the blue trees. I thought it was strange at first, but it stayed with me." My breath caught. She noticed. "I mean it," she said. It felt like something I had forgotten, like a dream I did not know I missed. I swallowed hard. "Thank you, Mia." That was all I said. It was all I could say. We finished the dishes in silence, but it was not a heavy silence. It was soft, like the moment before music starts. When I left that evening, she hugged me. Just for a second. But she did. As I drove home, I felt something fragile blooming in my chest. Maybe she did not fully understand me. Maybe she never would. But in that moment, I wanted to believe she could. I wanted to trust her. The next morning, I woke with a strange feeling. Not fear, not joy. Something in between. Like standing on the edge of something and not knowing whether to step forward or turn back. I made tea. The gold paint was still on the table. The stroke I had made the day before looked brighter now, as if it had gained confidence overnight. I was just sitting down to sketch when the phone rang. It was Clara. "I just wanted to check in," she said. Her voice was gentle, as always. "I had a strange dream about you last night." I smiled. Clara often had dreams and feelings about people. She said they were just echoes of energy. I never knew what that meant. But I listened. "What happened?" "In the dream?" I asked. She was quiet for a second. "You were standing in a white room. All the walls were covered with paintings. Your paintings. But no one could see you. They were all looking at the art, talking about it, but they never looked at you." I laughed softly. "Well, that sounds like life, does it not?" Clara did not laugh. "I think it means you are about to be seen again," she said. "But not everyone will be happy about it." That made me pause. "What do you mean?" "I do not know yet, but be careful who you trust, Margaret." I looked out the window. The trees swayed in the wind, their shadows reaching across the lawn like fingers. "Thank you," I said. "I will keep that in mind." After we hung up, I felt uneasy. Be careful who you trust. Those words stayed with me as I drove to the community center that afternoon. I had signed up for an art class there, not to teach, just to paint with others, to remember what it felt like to create without fear. The class was small, 8 people, including me. All different ages, backgrounds, stories. Took a seat near the back. Quiet, comfortable. The instructor was a woman named Laura. Late 30s, sharp eyes, soft smile. She moved with confidence. She introduced herself, then asked us to share why we were there. Most people spoke quickly. "I just want to relax. I am hoping to improve. I like colors. When it was my turn, I said, I am trying to find a part of myself again. Laura nodded. That is the best reason of all. We spent the afternoon painting from memory. No photographs, no copying, just remembering something and painting how it felt. I painted a sunflower, but not a whole field, just one. Its petals were worn, its stem was bent, but it still turned toward the light. When Laura passed by my easel, she stopped. This is beautiful, she said. Thank you. She paused. Are you an artist? The question made my heart ache a little. I used to be. She smiled. I think you still are. On the way out, I saw Mia's name on a poster in the hallway. Youth Art Gallery. Opening next month featuring. Work from local students. And there it was. Her name. In bold letters. No, maybe. No, if she is chosen. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was upset, but because I wondered why Caroline had said otherwise. Had she lied? Had Mia asked her to? Was I not supposed to know? That strange feeling returned. That edge. I walked to my car slowly, the wind tugging at my coat. Inside, I sat with the engine off, hands resting on the wheel. Maybe Clara's dream was just that, a dream. But maybe it was something more. I turned on the radio, but the voices sounded far away. I could still hear Clara's words. Be careful who you trust. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet, perhaps. I went through my usual routine. Morning tea, a walk through the garden, an hour or two in the studio. I tried to keep my mind steady, but Clara's voice lingered. Be careful who you trust. It repeated itself when the room was still, like a distant bell I could not unhear. I wanted to brush it away. I told myself not to read too much into it. Maybe the poster at the center had gone up early. Maybe Mia had been surprised too. Or maybe Caroline had just forgotten to mention it. Still, something was not sitting right. That evening, I called Caroline. I asked how Mia was doing. She answered quickly. She is fine, just focused on school and her art, still waiting to hear back about the show. I paused. Are you sure? She chuckled. Yes, Mother, I am sure. We would tell you if anything changed. I did not press her. I just said, all right. Then we spoke about groceries, the weather, and a neighbor who was selling their house. When we hung up, I stood by the window for a long time. The sky was dusky, that deep blue before the stars begin to show. A time when everything feels half true. I wanted to believe Caroline. I wanted to think it was just a mix-up, a small detail not worth holding on to. But my hands felt cold, not from the weather, from something else. I remembered when Mia was 5. She had drawn a picture of me, a stick figure with wild yellow, hair, and a giant pink heart on my chest. She had handed it to me and said, "This is you, Grandma. You are full of art." Back then, everything had felt so easy, so open. There were no secrets, only crayons and hugs. I missed that version of her, and of me. Now, even when she smiled, there was something hidden behind her eyes, something careful. Still, I tried not to dwell on it. Instead, I painted. I worked on a canvas I had left untouched for months, a stormy sky, half finished. That night, I added a small bird to it, wings outstretched, flying right into the darkness. I did not know why, but when I stepped back, I felt something settle in my chest. The next day, I went back to the community center. I greeted Laura, then sat at my usual place. During the break, I overheard two younger women talking. They mentioned the gallery event coming up. One of them said, "Apparently one of the students is getting her own section. Some girl named Mia. She must be really something." I froze. My hands tightened around my brush. I smiled politely, said nothing, and returned to my painting. But inside, my thoughts were spinning. Why lie to me? Why hide it? I wanted to believe there was a good reason. I wanted to believe it was just a misunderstanding. So I told myself that. Over and over, until it sounded almost true. But a small voice inside me whispered, "You already know." And still, I tried to ignore it. The next Sunday, Caroline brought Mia over. They came for brunch, as we had planned weeks ago. I had made everything Mia loved. Blueberry pancakes, scrambled eggs with cheddar, and fresh orange juice. I set the table with my favorite porcelain set, the one my mother had passed down to me, delicate flowers along the edges. She always said meals tasted better on a beautiful plate. When they arrived, I opened the door with a smile. Mia hugged me quickly, but it felt different. Not cold, not warm either. Just careful. Caroline kissed my cheek. "You look nice, Mother. Is that a new apron?" "No," I said softly. "It is just clean." We sat down. The room was filled with the smell of cinnamon and butter. I asked Mia how school was going. She said it was fine. I asked if she was still drawing. She nodded and said, "Just a little. I have been busy." I watched her closely. Her voice was neutral. Her eyes stayed low. She never quite met mine. Something had changed. After we ate, she excused herself and went to the living room. She pulled out her phone and sat on the couch. Caroline and I cleared the table. I wanted to ask. I wanted to say, "Why did you not tell me about the gallery?" But the words felt heavy, sharp even, not ready to land. So instead I asked gently, "Do you think Mia is excited about the upcoming art event?" Caroline looked at me and blinked. Then she smiled. But it was too quick. "Oh, you mean the student show?" "Yes, I think she is. Though, she tries to act like it is nothing." I nodded slowly. "She is very talented." "She is," Caroline said, placing a dish in the sink. "She gets it from you." The compliment was soft, almost too soft, like a blanket placed on a bruise. Later, while Caroline stepped outside to take a call, I walked into the living room. Mia was scrolling through her phone. I sat beside her. Close, but not too close. "I heard you might be showing some of your work soon," I said. "I would love to come." She glanced at me. For a second, just a second, her expression shifted, like a curtain being pulled back too quickly. Then it was gone. "Oh," she said, "I think it is just 1 or 2 drawings. Nothing big." Her tone was flat, but her eyes told a different story. Pride, fear, maybe even guilt. "I am proud of you," I said, She shrugged. Thanks. There was a time she would have jumped into my arms just to hear those words. Now, she just kept her eyes on the screen, and I kept mine on her. Because there was something in the way she looked at me. Not anger, not dislike, but distance. Like I was someone she did not fully recognize anymore. Someone she was not sure how to love. I wanted to reach out, to hold her hand, to tell her I understood, even if I did not know why yet. But I stayed still, and she stayed quiet. When they left, she waved from the car window. A small wave. Quick. Almost out of habit, I stood on the porch long after they were gone. The wind tugged at my sleeves. The trees rustled like whispers. Something had shifted. I had felt it in her voice, in her silence, and in the way she looked at me. And it hurt. Because I had always believed that no matter what happened, Mia and I would always understand each other, but now I was not so sure. 2 days passed before I made up my mind. I could not pretend anymore. The silence between Mia and me had grown too wide, too heavy. I needed to understand, not just guess, not just hope. So I called Caroline. I asked if Mia could come over after school. Just the two of us, I said. Caroline hesitated for a moment. Then she said, "Of course, I will tell her." That afternoon I waited by the window. The sky was pale and overcast, a soft gray that made everything feel muted. When Mia arrived, she walked in quietly. She held her sketchbook against her chest. She looked tired. I offered her some tea, but she shook her head. So we sat in the living room, across from each other, a small table between us. No distractions. Just space for the truth. I took a slow breath. Then I said, "Mia, I need to ask you something." She looked up, eyes cautious. "All right," she said. "I heard you were going to be featured in the student gallery," I began. "I saw a poster. Your name was there. Why did you not tell me?" She looked down. Her fingers tightened around her sketchbook. For a moment she said nothing, just silence, thick, uncomfortable. Then finally she whispered, "I was going to tell you. I did not know how." "Why not?" I asked gently. "I thought you loved sharing your art with me." "I do," she said quickly. "Or, I did. But things feel different now." My chest ached. "Different how?" She paused. Then she looked at me. Really looked at me. "I know you love painting, and I know you are good at it. But sometimes you treat it like a private world. Like there is no space for anyone else." That surprised me. "I never meant to make you feel that way," I said. She nodded. "I know. But when I started making art seriously, people started comparing us. At school. At home." "Comparing us?" I repeated. "Yes. Like, she gets it from her grandmother, or she must have learned from Margaret." But I wanted to feel like I did it on my own. I felt her words sink in. Heavy. Honest. A truth I had not seen. "I never meant to take anything from you," I said. "I know," she replied softly. "That is why I did not tell you about the gallery. I just wanted one thing that was mine. without anyone thinking I got it from you. There it was. Not betrayal, not cruelty, just a quiet truth. A young girl trying to find her voice while standing in the shadow of someone she loved. I sat back, my hands folded in my lap. I understand, I said, and I meant it. Mia looked relieved, but also a little ashamed. I was not trying to hurt you, she said. I just needed space. I see that now, I said. But next time, Mia, give me a chance to support you in the way you need, not just the way I know how. She smiled. A small, tired smile. But real. I will, she whispered. We sat in silence for a while. The tension had softened, not gone, but lighter. As she left that day, she hugged me just a little tighter. Still, even after the truth, something inside me remained unsettled, because even honesty can leave behind quiet pain. That night, I could not sleep. The house was quiet, but my mind was loud. I lay in bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow ticking of the clock on the wall. I kept thinking about Mia's words. She wanted something of her own. She felt like she was in my shadow. She needed space. I had never meant to make her feel that way. I had only wanted to share something I loved, something that had once saved me. But now I wondered, had I spoken too much and listened too little? Had I been so eager to connect that I did not see how much she needed distance? I turned on the lamp beside my bed. Its soft yellow light spilled across the room. I reached for an old sketchbook from the drawer. The pages were filled with soft watercolors, mostly flowers, windows, and distant hills. I turned each page slowly. Each one felt like a memory. This book had once brought me comfort, but now it only made me feel uncertain. Was I part of the reason she had pulled away? I stood up and walked down the hall, into the small studio I had built years ago. The air smelled like dust and dried paint. My easel stood in the corner, untouched for months. The canvas on it was only half finished. A quiet beach scene, the sky still blank. I sat on the stool and stared at it. And then, without thinking, I picked up a brush. I did not paint anything detailed, just soft strokes, blues, grays, a little gold in the distance. As the brush moved, so did the thoughts. Remembered when Mia first held a paintbrush. She was only 4. She had spilled purple paint across the floor and laughed so loudly that even I had to laugh too. Back then, she had painted to feel free. Had I taken some of that freedom away? I sighed. When the sky outside began to lighten, I was still sitting there. I had not painted much, but I had remembered everything. I finally stood up, washed my hands, and made myself a cup of tea. But even as I sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in my robe, watching the sun rise through the window, the thoughts stayed. They followed me into the shower, into the garden, into every corner of the house. They whispered questions I could not answer. They asked me if I had failed, if I had been selfish, if I had been blind. I did not know. All I knew was that something had changed, not just in Mia, but in me. And once you start asking those questions, the ones that keep you awake, they never really leave. That evening, the rain began to fall softly outside my window. The steady tapping of the drops created a quiet rhythm, a gentle song that seemed to echo the thoughts inside me. I sat by the window, wrapped in a warm shawl, holding a cup of chamomile, tea that had gone cold hours ago. The steam had vanished, but I did not move to get a fresh cup. My hands felt heavy, and my heart even heavier. I watched the raindrops race down the glass, each one tracing its own path before disappearing. It felt like a mirror of my own emotions, racing, unpredictable, and then fading into silence. I thought about Mia, her hesitant smile, her careful words, the space she needed that I had not fully understood. The house felt empty, not because I was alone, but because there was a distance I could not cross. I tried to remember when things had first started to change. Was it the moment she told me she was afraid to share her art with me? Or the way she looked at me that Sunday afternoon, like I was someone she barely knew? Tears came quietly, not in a flood, but in small, steady drops. I did not wipe them away. They felt like a release, like the rain washing away dust from the garden outside. I thought about all the years we had shared, the birthdays, the school plays, the quiet afternoons painting together. Each memory was a thread woven into the fabric of my heart, and now some of those threads felt fragile, as if the tapestry might unravel. The silence in the room was loud. It filled every corner, every shadow. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe deeply, in through the nose, out through the mouth, one breath at a time. But the pain was quiet and persistent, like a soft ache that never fully goes away. I wondered if Mia felt the same, if she was lying awake too, thinking about how our relationship had changed. I wished I could tell her how much I loved her, not just as her grandmother, but as a person who had once dreamed of being an artist herself, who understood the fear of showing one's soul through a brush or a pencil. I wished I could tell her that her art mattered to me, that her dreams mattered to me. But sometimes love is silent. Sometimes it is a feeling too deep for words. Quiet presence waiting patiently for a way back. Outside, the rain continued, a steady, soothing sound that seemed to promise healing. I stayed by the window long after the tea was gone cold, hoping that with time, the quiet pain would soften, and the distance between Mia and me would begin to close. The days after my quiet evening by the window blurred together. Each morning, I woke with a knot in my chest, a restless feeling that would not ease. I needed clarity. I needed to understand what Mia was truly feeling, not just through her words, but through her heart. One afternoon, I decided to ask her directly. Mia was sitting at the kitchen table, her sketchbook open in front of her, pencils scattered like tiny soldiers ready for battle. I took a deep breath and sat down opposite her. "Mia," I began gently, "there is something I need to ask you." She looked up, eyes wide and uncertain. "Do you still want me to be part of your art journey? Or have I become someone you want to keep at a distance?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy like a thick fog. Mia looked down again. Her fingers traced invisible patterns on the wooden table. After a long silence, she whispered, "I do want you there, Grandma. But sometimes I feel like I have to protect my art from you. Not because I do not trust you, but because I am scared." "Scared of what?" I asked, my voice soft but steady. "Scared you will be disappointed. she said, her voice breaking a little. Or that you will think I am not good enough. My heart cracked at those words, because I had never thought that way. I had always been proud of her, even when she did not believe in herself. Mia, I said, reaching out to take her hand. I could never be disappointed in you. You are talented and brave, and your art is your voice. I want to hear every word. She looked up, tears gathering in her eyes. But I do not want to hurt you either, she whispered. You will not, I promised. I am here to support you, not to judge. We will walk this path together, one step at a time. Mia smiled through her tears, and I saw a small light in her eyes, a flicker of hope. We sat like that for a long time, holding hands, sharing silence, building bridges. That day, I realized something important. Sometimes the people we love need us to be patient, to listen more than we speak, to understand before we try to fix. And sometimes the answers we need are not in words alone, but in the quiet moments between them. The days after my conversation with Mia felt different. There was still an unspoken tension, but also a fragile thread of hope weaving between us. One afternoon, as I walked through the small gallery where my paintings hung, I felt a quiet stirring inside me, a feeling I had not recognized before. It was the moment I finally understood. I understood that Mia's distance was not about me. It was about her own journey, her fears, her dreams, and her need to find her own voice. For years I had carried the weight of my own disappointments and regrets. I had hidden parts of myself behind smiles and routine, afraid to show the true colors of my heart. But Mia was different. She was brave enough to struggle openly, to wrestle with uncertainty, and still keep painting. I thought about the paintings in this gallery, my gallery, each one a story of struggle and hope, of late nights spent alone with a brush, of moments when the colors did not come easily, but I kept going anyway. My art was my language. It was how I spoke when words failed me, and now I saw that Mia needed to find her own language too. That afternoon, I sat in the empty gallery and opened Mia's sketchbook again. This time, I saw more than just colors and lines. I saw her heart, her pain, her courage. I realized I had been holding on to my own fears. Fear that Mia would not understand me, fear that our bond might break. But the truth was, our love was stronger than any fear. I finally understood that to truly support Mia, I had to let go of my expectations and listen with an open heart. That night, I wrote her a letter. Not a long letter, but one full of honest words. I see you, Mia. I hear you. I am proud of you, always. I left the letter on her desk before she came home. The next day, Mia found it. Later she came to me with a shy smile and a hug that said more than words ever could. In that moment, I knew we were beginning a new chapter together. Despite the small light of hope we had found, something inside me still felt heavy. It was as if a part of my heart remained tangled in old wounds. Wounds I could not ignore. One afternoon, after a quiet breakfast, I made a decision. I needed space, not just for Mia, but for myself. To breathe, to heal, to think clearly. I told Mia gently, I think I need to take some time for myself, to reflect and find peace." She nodded, understanding in her eyes, but sadness too. "I will be here when you are ready," she said softly. Leaving the house that day was harder than I expected. I packed a small bag with a few things: some clothes, my sketchbook, and a photo of my late husband. He had always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. The world outside was rainy and gray, mirroring the storm inside my mind. I found a small cabin by the lake, a quiet place surrounded by trees and silence. It was far from the noise of daily life, far from the expectations and misunderstandings. At first, the silence was deafening. I missed Mia's laughter, the sound of her footsteps in the hallway, the warmth of our shared moments. But I also realized how much I had needed this time alone. Days passed slowly. I walked along the shore, letting the cold water wash over my feet. I painted again, not for anyone but myself. Colors flowed from my brush like forgotten memories finding their way home. Each day, the pain inside me softened a little. I thought about the past and the future, about what I wanted to be, not just for Mia, but for me. Walking away had not been easy, but sometimes stepping back is the only way to move forward. And in that quiet space, I began to find the strength I thought I had lost. Even though I was far from home, the pain did not leave me. It lingered like a shadow, quiet but persistent. Some mornings I woke with a heavy heart, and the memories came flooding back. The harsh words, the silence between Mia and me, the distance that had grown like a wall. I tried to distract myself by painting, but the colors sometimes seemed dull and lifeless, like my spirit was trapped beneath a thick fog. I thought I would feel better being alone, but loneliness was its own kind of ache. Sometimes I found myself staring out the cabin window, watching the rain fall softly on the trees, wishing things could be different. I missed Mia deeply. I missed the warmth of her smile and the light in her eyes. But most of all, I missed the connection we used to share. I wondered if she was feeling the same pain, or if she had already moved on without me. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, I allowed myself to cry fully, not the quiet tears of before, but deep, cleansing sobs that shook my body. It was painful, but it was also healing. I realized that pain is not something to be rushed or ignored. It is part of the journey. Oh, sign that love is real and that we care deeply. Though the pain stayed, I began to understand it was also a teacher. It taught me patience. It taught me strength. And it taught me how to hope again. I knew that healing would take time. But for the first time in a long while, I believed that someday the pain would soften, and I would be ready to open my heart once more. Some nights, when the cabin grew still and the only sound was the whisper of the wind through the trees, I would sit by the window and let my thoughts drift back to the past. It was strange how memory worked, how some moments seemed to shine, brighter than the present, as if they were frozen in time, untouched by pain or loss. I thought about Mia as a little girl, so full of life and curiosity, with paint smudges on her fingers and a smile that could light up the darkest room. I remembered the first time she showed me her drawings, proudly holding up a messy sketch of a wildflower garden. Her eyes were wide with excitement and hope, and I felt a swell of love so strong it almost took my breath away. Back then, our days were filled with laughter and quiet moments of shared creativity. We would spend hours sitting together at the kitchen table, mixing colors and telling stories through brushstrokes and pencil lines. Mia's imagination was boundless, and I was her biggest fan. Those memories were like warm sunlight spilling through the window on a cold day. They reminded me of a time when our bond was simple and pure, when love felt safe and unconditional, when we believed that nothing could ever break us apart. But time changes everything. People grow, and sometimes they grow apart. The laughter faded, replaced by silence and misunderstandings. The colors in our lives seemed to lose their brightness. I missed those days more than I could say. I missed Mia's laughter ringing through the halls of our home. I missed the feeling of her small hand in mine, trusting and unafraid. I missed the way her eyes would light up when she saw a new canvas or a fresh set of paints. Yet I also understood that the past was a place I could not live in. No matter how much I longed for it, I could not turn back the clock. Instead, I held those memories close to my heart, like precious treasures tucked safely away. They were reminders of who we had been and what we still could be. One evening, as I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would fight for Mia. I would do everything in my power to heal the distance between us. Because the past was not just a collection of memories, it was the foundation for our future. And even though the road ahead was uncertain, I believed that with patience, love, and understanding, we could find our way back to each other. After several quiet days at the cabin, I realized that while solitude could bring some clarity, there was a limit to what I could face alone. Sometimes, the heart needs a witness. Someone who listens without judgment, someone who understands, without trying to fix everything. So I reached out to my old friend Susan. Susan had been in my life for many years. She was the kind of person who always had a warm smile and a calm voice. Even when life was difficult, she made you feel that things would be all right. I hesitated before calling her. It was not easy to admit that I needed help. But when I heard her voice on the other end, a wave of relief washed over me. We talked for hours that evening. I told her about Mia, about the growing distance between us, and the pain that felt like it might never fade. Susan listened quietly. She did not interrupt or offer quick solutions. She simply held space for my feelings. After I finished speaking, she said softly, "You are a strong woman, but even strong women need support. It is okay to feel lost sometimes. It is okay to ask for help." Her words felt like a gentle embrace. They reminded me that I was not alone. Susan shared stories from her own life, times when she faced challenges and had to find her way through the darkness. She spoke about forgiveness, not just of others, but of ourselves. "It is a process," she said. "Sometimes slow, sometimes painful, but always worth it." Her kindness gave me courage. That night I felt lighter. The burden I had carried for so long seemed smaller. I realized that healing was not a straight path. It was full of twists and turns. And sometimes you had to lean on others to keep moving forward. I thank Susan for listening. Her friendship was a beacon in my storm. Before we ended the call, she said something that stayed with me. "Remember, you are not just a mother or an artist or a grandmother. You are a woman with a story worth telling, and you are not finished yet. Those words gave me hope. The next morning, I looked out at the lake, feeling a quiet strength growing inside. Maybe, just maybe, I was ready to take the next step. After several quiet days at the cabin, I realized that while solitude could bring some clarity, there was a limit to what I could face alone. Sometimes, the heart needs a witness. Someone who listens without judgment, someone who understands, without trying to fix everything. So I reached out to my old friend Susan. Susan had been in my life for many years. She was the kind of person who always had a warm smile and a calm voice. Even when life was difficult, she made you feel that things would be all right. I hesitated before calling her. It was not easy to admit that I needed help. But when I heard her voice on the other end, a wave of relief washed over me. We talked for hours that evening. I told her about Mia, about the growing distance between us, and the pain that felt like it might never fade. Susan listened quietly. She did not interrupt or offer quick solutions. She simply held space for my feelings. After I finished speaking, she said softly, "You are a strong woman, but even strong women need support. It is okay to feel lost sometimes. It is okay to ask for help." Her words felt like a gentle embrace. They reminded me that I was not alone. Susan shared stories from her own life, times when she faced challenges and had to find her way through the darkness. She spoke about forgiveness, not just of others, but of ourselves. "It is a process," she said. "Sometimes slow, sometimes painful, but always worth it." Her kindness gave me courage. That night I felt lighter. The burden I had carried for so long seemed smaller. I realized that healing was not a straight path. It was full of twists and turns. And sometimes you had to lean on others to keep moving forward. I thank Susan for listening. Her friendship was a beacon in my storm. Before we ended the call, she said something that stayed with me. "Remember, you are not just a mother or an artist or a grandmother. You are a woman with a story worth telling, and you are not finished yet." Those words gave me hope. The next morning, I looked out at the lake, feeling a quiet strength growing inside. Maybe, just maybe, I was ready to take the next step. Being alone is a strange feeling. At first, it is heavy and cold, like walking into a quiet room with no light. But slowly, it becomes a place of stillness, a space where you can hear your own thoughts clearly. After saying goodbye, I found myself surrounded by silence. No calls, no voices, no distractions. Just me and the echoes of memories. At times the loneliness was painful. I missed the sound of Mia's laughter, the warmth of her presence in the house. Even the small disagreements we had seemed comforting in their own way. But as the days passed, I began to discover something new about solitude. It was not emptiness. It was not a punishment. It was a chance to reconnect with myself. I started waking up earlier, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. I made tea slowly, savoring the warmth in my hands. I took long walks in the park nearby, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. In this quiet time, I could finally listen to my own heart. I could think without distraction, feel without fear, and heal without rushing. Being alone allowed me to reflect on who I was beyond the roles I played. Not just a mother or grandmother, not just an artist or caregiver, but a woman with dreams, fears, and strength all her own. I wrote in my journal each night, pouring out my thoughts and feelings onto the pages. Sometimes the words came easily. Other times they were slow and painful. But every entry brought a little more clarity, a little more peace. In the stillness, I found a quiet strength growing inside me, a knowing that I could face whatever came. Next, I was alone now, but I was not lonely. I was learning to be my own companion, to trust myself again. And in that, I found hope. Time has a way of changing us, even when we do not want it to. After the long weeks of quiet and reflection, I realized something important. I was not the same woman I had been before. The pain of the past had carved new lines in my heart, but it had also opened up spaces for growth and strength. I could feel it deep inside. A shift in how I saw myself. A new kind of resilience that I had not known before. I no longer felt defined by the judgments of others, or weighed down by their expectations. I was learning to trust my own voice, to stand firmly in my own truth. One afternoon, I sat by the window, watching the world outside move at its usual hurried pace. But inside me, there was a calmness, a quiet confidence that said, "You are enough." I thought about Mia and our strained relationship. I knew that healing would take time, and that forgiveness was a journey, not a destination. But I was ready to face it, to meet whatever came with courage and grace. I began to see my life as a story still unfolding, not one defined by loss or betrayal, but by hope, strength, and the possibility of new beginnings. I remembered the artist I had once been, the woman who poured her soul into every brushstroke, and I realized that part of me had been waiting all along, waiting for the right moment to return. That day, I picked up my paintbrush again. Slowly at first, then with more confidence. Each stroke was a declaration, a promise to myself that I would keep moving forward. I was not the same woman I had been. I was stronger, wiser, and more alive. And for the first time in a long time, I looked toward the future with hope. Some days, hope feels like a tiny flicker, a small light struggling to shine in the darkness. But even the smallest light can guide you through the night. One morning, as I was walking through the quiet streets, I noticed a small art gallery on a corner I had never seen before. The window displayed a single painting, bright, colorful, full of life. I paused and stared at it for a long moment. There was something about the painting that spoke to me, something that stirred a feeling deep inside. It reminded me of my own art, the passion and joy I had put into every piece before the pain and silence took over. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of inspiration, a whisper of a dream I thought I had lost. That small light grew as I stood there. It gave me courage to think about what I truly wanted, not what others expected, but what I needed for myself. I began to imagine my own art hanging on a gallery wall, bright and alive, telling my story without words. The thought made my heart beat faster, and I knew that this small light was the beginning of something new. Hope was returning, slowly, gently, like the first rays of dawn after a long night, and I was ready to follow it. The decision to begin again felt both frightening and freeing. It was like standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The water was unknown, deep, and a little cold, but it also promised new adventures and discoveries. I woke up early that morning with the sun casting soft light through the curtains. The house was still quiet, but inside me, something had shifted. I had spent so long waiting for someone else to change, waiting for forgiveness, or for things to get better. But now, I understood that the power to change my life was mine alone. Started small. I made a list of simple things I wanted to do, to take care of myself in ways I had forgotten. Drink more water, take walks in the park, paint again, even if only for a few minutes each day. I cleaned the corners of the house that had gathered dust, as if clearing the space around me would help clear the space inside me. With every sweep of the broom, I felt lighter. I began to reconnect with old friends, not to fill the silence, but to share moments of genuine joy and understanding. Susan was there, always encouraging me with her gentle words and unwavering support. Most importantly, I started to speak kindly to myself. For so long, my inner voice had been critical, harsh. It whispered doubts and fears. "You are too old," it said. "You have missed your chance." But now, I learned to listen differently. "I'm enough," I told myself softly, every morning and every night. "I am worthy of happiness, love, and success." It was not easy. Some days were harder than others. There were moments when the past still weighed heavily, when loneliness crept back in like a shadow. But I kept moving forward. Slowly, my routine became a rhythm of hope, a gentle reminder that life was still full of possibility. One afternoon, I opened my paint box again, feeling the familiar weight of the brushes in my hands. I chose bright colors, reds, yellows, blues, and began to create without fear of judgment. Each stroke was a small victory. Each color on the canvas was a piece of my heart laid bare. I realized that beginning again was not about erasing the past. It was about carrying it with me, but not letting it hold me back. I was ready to write this new chapter, one filled with courage, love, and endless possibility. And I would take it one beautiful, gentle step at a time. The days passed, and my new life began to take shape. I was building my own world, piece by piece, with hope and care. But then, just as I started to feel steady, he appeared again. Derek. I had not expected it. After all the pain and distance, I thought the chapter was closed. But here he was, standing at my door, looking older, quieter, and different. "I want to talk," he said softly. His eyes held a mixture of regret and hope. For a moment, my heart fluttered. Old feelings, old memories trying to rise. But I took a deep breath and held my ground. This was not the same woman he had left behind. I had changed. I had grown stronger. "Why now?" I asked gently but firmly. "After everything, why do you want to come back?" He looked down, struggling to find words. "I was wrong," he said. "I did not realize how much you meant to me until you were gone. I want to make things right." His voice was sincere, but I could not ignore the past. The broken promises, the silent nights, the hurt. "I have learned to stand on my own," I replied. "I have found strength inside myself that I never knew was there. If you want to be part of my life again, you will have to earn my trust. Not just with words, but with actions." He nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, "and I am willing to try." We talked for hours that day, sharing stories, hopes, and fears. It was the beginning of a new chapter, uncertain, fragile, but real. I knew it would not be easy. Trust once broken takes time to heal. But I was willing to open my heart, carefully, and see where this new path might lead. When Derek returned, I realized I was not the same woman who had once loved him. I was stronger, more aware, wiser in ways that only pain and time can teach. Our conversations were different this time. I listened with an open heart, but I also paid close attention to his actions, because words alone could not heal the wounds of the past. I remembered how I used to rush to forgive, to fix what was broken without taking care of myself. But now, I took my time. I set boundaries and honored my feelings. There were moments when old fears tried to creep in. The fear of being hurt again, the fear of disappointment. But I did not let them control me. Instead, I looked at Derek honestly and decided what was best for me. I also saw how much I had changed inside. I was no longer defined by others' opinions. I had learned to trust my intuition and stand firm in my truth. This new version of myself was more patient, more compassionate, not only toward others but toward myself. I realized that being different was a gift. It meant I had survived the storms and come out wiser on the other side. And even if this new chapter with Derek did not last forever, I knew I would be okay, because I had finally found my own strength. A strength that would carry me forward, no matter what. The days after Derek's visit felt heavy and light at the same time. Heavy, because memories I thought I had locked away began to stir. Light, because I knew I was no longer bound by them. Each morning, I woke slowly and sipped my tea by the window. Outside, the garden bloomed with early spring flowers, and their bright colors seemed to whisper promises of new beginnings. I allowed myself to watch the small things, the way sunlight moved through the leaves, the gentle hum of birdsong, the soft breeze that carried the scent of fresh earth. It reminded me that life kept moving, and so must I. I made a list of all the moments I wanted to experience differently this time around. Not just in my relationship with Derek, but in how I treated myself, how I spoke to my own heart. I wrote down phrases like, "I deserve respect," "My feelings matter," "It is okay to say no," "I will listen to my intuition." Each phrase was a seed planted in my soul, waiting to grow. Sometimes I found myself staring into the mirror, looking for the woman I used to be. I wondered where she had gone. Had she disappeared, or was she still inside, waiting to be found? I touched my face gently and whispered, "I am here. I am stronger than you think." It was a small ritual, but it gave me courage. One afternoon I received a message from Susan, my closest friend. She had sensed the change in me long before I had. Her words were warm and full of encouragement. "Remember," she wrote, "you are not alone. We are walking this journey together." Her message was like a warm hug, reminding me that healing is never a lonely path. That evening, Derek called, again. We spoke for a long time about the future, about what we both wanted, and what we were afraid to lose. He shared stories from his past year, moments of regret and lessons learned. I listened carefully, but I also shared my own truths. told him how I had started painting again, how it helped me find peace. I spoke about the strength I was discovering in myself. For the first time, I saw him not just as my past, but as someone who might walk with me in the present, if only he could respect the woman I was becoming. But I was clear. This was not a fresh start on his terms. It was a new journey, and I was leading the way. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, cautiously, we began to rebuild a bridge. Not without cracks or doubts, but with honesty and effort. I felt the old pain sometimes, a sudden ache when I remembered past betrayals. But I no longer let those moments define me. Instead, I breathed deeply and reminded myself, I am different now. One evening, I sat at my small wooden desk, the soft glow of a lamp casting warm light on my painting supplies. The canvas in front of me was blank, waiting patiently for my brush to dance across its surface. I picked up the brush and paused, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Art had always been my refuge. When words failed me, colors and shapes spoke my truth. But after years of silence, I was hesitant to pick up the brush again. I thought about Jacob's words, the sharpness in his voice when he told me I did not understand art. At the time, his words had stung deeply, cutting into a part of me I had tried to protect. But now, I realized those words were a challenge, a spark igniting something inside me. I dipped the brush into the vibrant blue paint and made the first stroke, bold and confident. The color spread across the canvas like a wave, freeing emotions I had buried for too long. As I painted, memories washed over me, memories of my youth, my dreams, and the woman I had been before life became complicated. I remembered the times I had felt invisible, unheard, and unappreciated. But with every brushstroke, I reclaimed pieces of myself, healing the fractures inside. Painting became a ritual. Each day, I set aside time to create, to lose myself in colors and shapes. My hands moved with a purpose, expressing emotions that words could not capture. The art gallery opening was now only weeks away, and I was both anxious and excited. This was more than an event. It was a statement, a declaration that I was here, alive, and unapologetically myself. Derek noticed the change in me too. He saw the light in my eyes and the confidence in my voice. He began to support my passion, encouraging me to share my work with the world. Yet, despite the progress, there were moments when doubt crept in. I questioned whether I was truly ready to face the crowd, to let strangers see my soul laid bare on canvas. One rainy afternoon, I sat alone in the studio, the sound of raindrops tapping against the window matching the rhythm of my thoughts. Tears welled up as I remembered the harsh words from my family, the times I felt small and insignificant. But then I reminded myself, I am different now. I have the strength to face my fears. I am not defined by others' opinions. I wiped my tears and reached for my brush again, painting with renewed determination. The gallery opening was approaching fast, and I knew this night would change everything. The day of the gallery opening arrived with a soft gray sky. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening with tiny droplets like scattered jewels. I stood before the mirror in my bedroom, smoothing the simple navy dress I had chosen to wear. It was elegant, but not flashy, just like me now. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I am ready. The hours before the event were a mixture of calm and nervous anticipation. I checked my phone for messages, but there were none yet from my family. I did not know if they would come. Some had distanced themselves after everything. Still, I felt no bitterness. I had made peace with the fact that not everyone would be part of this new chapter. This night was for me. When I arrived at the gallery, the space buzzed with soft murmurs and footsteps on polished floors. Paintings hung on white walls, each telling a story in color and form. My collection filled the room. My heart poured out on canvas. I recognized some familiar faces in the crowd. Friends like Susan, fellow artists, and even a few strangers curious about the event. They approached me with kind smiles and words of encouragement. "You have a gift," one woman said softly. "Your work is powerful." I smiled back, feeling a swell of pride. For so long, I had hidden this part of myself, doubting it was worth sharing. But now, here I was, vulnerable and brave. Suddenly the door opened and a figure stepped inside. It was Jacob, my granddaughter's father, looking surprised and uncertain. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of something unspoken. Maybe respect, maybe regret. He did not say much, but his presence was enough to remind me how far I had come. Throughout the evening, I spoke softly about each piece, the memories behind the colors, the emotions that inspired every stroke. People listened, some with tears in their eyes. I realized this was more than an art show. It was a celebration of resilience, of healing, of finding one's voice after years of silence. By the time the night ended, I felt lighter, freer. I had reclaimed my story, not just as a grandmother, a mother, or a daughter, but as a woman who had survived and thrived. Walking home, the cool air kissed my cheeks, and I smiled quietly to myself. I was different now, and I was proud. The morning after the gallery opening, I awoke feeling a quiet peace I had not known in years. The weight of old burdens seemed lighter, as if the night's events had lifted a fog from my heart. I sat at this kitchen table with my cup of tea, watching the sun rise slowly over the rooftops. The soft golden light streamed through the window, bathing everything in warmth. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Hopeful that the future could hold something new, something beautiful. My phone buzzed softly. A message from Jacob appeared. "I was wrong to doubt you," it read simply. "Your art, it is amazing. I wish I had listened sooner." A lump rose in my throat. His words were a small bridge across years of misunderstanding. Maybe this was the start of something healing between us. I wrote back carefully. "Thank you, Jacob. It means a lot to hear that. I hope we can talk more soon." That day, I took a long walk through the park. The air smelled of fresh earth and blooming flowers. I noticed children playing, their laughter echoing around me. It reminded me of innocence, of second chances. As I walked, I thought about the woman I had been, the one who let others' opinions shape her self-worth. That woman was still part of me, but she was no longer in control. I had learned to listen to my own voice, to trust my instincts, to protect my heart. In the coming weeks, I continued to paint, each piece a reflection of my evolving self. I joined a small art group where I met others who had their own stories of pain and healing. We shared our work, our struggles, and slowly, a community grew around me. One afternoon, Susan and I sat in a cozy cafe sipping warm coffee. She smiled at me, eyes bright with encouragement. "You have changed, Helen. You shine in a way you never did before." I smiled back, feeling the truth of her words settle deep inside me. Later, I received an invitation from a local magazine to feature my story and artwork. It was an opportunity I had never imagined. I hesitated at first. What if people judged me? What if my past mistakes followed me? But then I thought, no, this is my moment. I am not afraid anymore. I agreed to the interview, ready to share my journey, the pain, the growth, and the power of rediscovery. With every step, I embraced my new identity. A woman who had been broken but was now whole. A woman who had learned to love herself again. After the whirlwind of the gallery opening and the quiet mornings of reflection that followed, I came to a realization. It was time to choose myself. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that honored everything I had been through and everything I wanted to become. For too long, I had shaped my life around others. My family's expectations, their opinions, their needs. I had given pieces of myself away, hoping to earn their love or approval. Now, I understood that my own happiness could not depend on anyone else. One afternoon, I sat in my favorite chair by the window, the sunlight casting gentle shadows on the floor. I opened a small journal I had begun keeping during my healing journey. With a pen in hand, I wrote down a promise to myself. I will put my needs first. I will care for my heart. I will honor my dreams. Writing these words felt like planting seeds in fertile soil, seeds that would grow into strength, peace, and joy. I started small. I took long walks in nature, feeling the earth beneath my feet. I cooked meals I enjoyed without worrying about pleasing anyone else. I allowed myself quiet moments of stillness, where nothing was expected of me. Sometimes I still felt the pull of old patterns, the desire to please, to fix, to sacrifice. But now, I caught myself before slipping back. I reminded myself gently, you deserve love, especially from yourself. At times, this choice was difficult. Family members questioned my new boundaries. Some seemed confused, others upset. But I stood firm, knowing that this was not just a phase, but a fundamental shift in how I lived. I also reconnected with old friends who had been supportive all along. Their encouragement was a balm to my soul. Susan became a constant companion. We shared laughter, tears, and dreams. One evening, as we sat together on her porch, she said, "Helen, you are glowing. It is as if you have found the woman you were always meant to be." I looked at my reflection in the glass of her door. A woman who had weathered storms and come out shining. And I smiled, knowing it was true. Choosing myself did not mean turning my back on those I loved. It meant loving myself enough to set healthy boundaries, to protect my peace, and to follow my own path. It was a peaceful but powerful decision, a quiet revolution within my heart. The morning sun crept gently through the curtains, casting warm light over my bedroom. I woke slowly, feeling a calm I had not known for a long time. Today felt different, as if the world had shifted just enough to make space for something new. I stretched my arms and smiled quietly to myself. This was a new day. After years of uncertainty and pain, I was beginning to feel at peace with who I was and the choices I had made. I understood now that healing was not a straight path. It was filled with twists, setbacks, and small victories. I dressed carefully, choosing a soft blue blouse and comfortable trousers. I wanted to step into the day with intention and grace. As I walked through the garden, the fresh scent of blooming flowers filled the air. Birds sang softly, welcoming the morning. It was as if nature itself was celebrating this new chapter of my life. I thought about all I had endured, the betrayals, the doubts, the loneliness, and I thought about how far I had come. I smiled because I had survived, not by forgetting the past, but by carrying it gently as a part of my story. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Susan. "Let us meet for tea. I have a feeling today is a special day for you." We met at a small cafe filled with sunlight and the hum of quiet conversation. She looked at me with warm eyes and said, "You look radiant, not because you have forgotten the pain, but because you have risen above it." I nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Yes," I said softly. "I am learning to smile again. Not because everything is perfect, but because I am still here. Because I chose to keep going." Susan reached across the table and took my hand. "You inspire me, Helen. You remind me that it is never too late to find ourselves again." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey, for the pain that taught me strength, for the love that still lingered in unexpected places. She smiled, not because she forgot, but because she survived. That evening, as I sat quietly by the window with a cup of chamomile tea, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The twists and turns, the moments of doubt, and the flashes of hope. I thought about the people who had touched my life, some with kindness, some with pain, and how each encounter had shaped me. I whispered softly to the quiet room, "Thank you. Thank you to my granddaughter for challenging me and pushing me to reveal parts of myself I had hidden away. Thank you to Jacob for his hesitant but honest steps toward understanding. Thank you to Susan, whose friendship was a steady light in dark moments. And thank you to myself for holding on, for choosing healing, for finding the courage to step forward." Gratitude filled my heart, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a steady flame. I wrote letters of thanks, not to send, but to honor my own growth. Each word was a thread, weaving a new tapestry of strength and peace. Sometimes I read these letters aloud, hearing the voice of a woman who had learned to love herself through every storm. It was a quiet act of self-kindness, a ritual that deepened my healing. In those moments, I realized how far I had come, from doubt to clarity, from silence to voice, from pain to gratitude. I was learning that saying thank you, even in the smallest moments, was a powerful way to heal the heart. As night deepened, I closed my eyes and breathed in the stillness, feeling a gentle calm settle over me. I was not perfect, and my journey was far from over, but I was here, whole, hopeful, and thankful, and that was enough. Forgiveness is not easy. I learned this truth slowly, with many quiet nights and long talks with myself. For years, I held on to guilt and blame. I thought that if I punished myself enough, maybe things would change. Maybe I could erase the mistakes, the misunderstandings, the times I did not say what I wanted to say. But the weight of this self-judgment was heavy and dark. It kept me trapped in a cycle of pain. One day, as I sat in my studio surrounded by my paintings, I realized something important. I needed to forgive myself, not for others. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I deserved peace. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I pictured the woman I had been, confused, hurt, searching. And then I pictured the woman I was now, stronger, wiser, ready to heal. With a steady voice in my heart, I said, I forgive you. I forgave myself for the times I felt weak, for the times I put others before me and lost myself, for the times I did not speak up. And in that moment, I felt a softness spread through me, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Forgiveness was not forgetting. It was not excusing the pain. It was a gift I gave myself, a chance to be free. Knew this was only the beginning of a lifelong journey, but the first step was taken. With forgiveness, I could finally move forward with an open heart. I was learning to love myself, flaws and all, with patience and grace. And that love was the strongest foundation I could build upon. The morning air was crisp and cool as I stepped outside barefoot, feeling the soft grass beneath my feet. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Free from the chains of doubt and fear that had held me back. Free from the weight of others' expectations and judgments. Free to be myself. Fully, honestly, without apology. I danced slowly across the lawn, arms outstretched, embracing the lightness that filled my heart. The wind whispered through the trees, as if nature itself was celebrating my freedom. I laughed softly, a sound of pure joy and release. It was not loud or boastful. It was a quiet celebration of survival and rebirth. I thought about all the times I had felt trapped, in my family, in my fears, in my own mind. And I realized that freedom was not about escaping my past, but about choosing to live beyond it. I was free to create new memories, new dreams, new connections. The journey had not been easy. There had been pain and tears, moments of loneliness and despair. But each step had led me closer to this moment of liberation. Walking barefoot on the earth, I felt grounded and alive. I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving. This was my gift to myself, the freedom to live with courage, joy, and hope. And I promised to hold on to this feeling no matter what the future might bring. Because now, I was free. With every sunrise, I felt more certain of who I was. Not the woman others had tried to define or dismiss, but the woman I had come to know through struggle, reflection, and love. I was a woman of strength and softness, courage, and vulnerability. A woman who had faced betrayal and found forgiveness. A woman who had lost much and gained more. Wisdom, peace, and self-respect. I saw myself clearly in the mirror each morning. Not just my reflection, but my true self shining through. I carried my story like a precious book, full of lessons and hope. I was not perfect, but I was whole. I was not broken, but beautifully mended. Knowing who I was gave me a quiet confidence that no one could take away. It allowed me to walk into rooms with my head held high and my heart open. I no longer needed the approval of others to feel worthy. I found worthiness inside me, deep and unshakable. This self-awareness was a gift I gave myself every day. It was a light that guided me through uncertainty and change, and it reminded me that my life, with all its challenges and triumphs, was mine to live fully and freely. I embraced my identity with gratitude and pride, because now I truly knew who I was. As I sit here now, in the quiet of my studio surrounded by the paintings that tell my story, I feel a deep sense of peace. It is not the peace that comes from forgetting or ignoring the hard times. No, it is a peace born from living through them, from facing the pain, the confusion, and the fear, and choosing to grow beyond them. I want to share my story with you, not because it is extraordinary or perfect, but because it is real. Because it carries the truth of what many of us experience, quietly, in our own lives. I want you to know that it is okay to feel lost sometimes. It is okay to have moments when you doubt yourself or wonder if things will ever get better. These feelings do not make you weak. They make you human. But I want you also to know this. You are stronger than you think. You have within you a resilience that can carry you through the darkest days. Even when you feel invisible, unheard, or forgotten, your light is there. It may flicker, but it does not go out. Life will not always be easy. There will be betrayals that cut deep. There will be moments of loneliness and tears that seem endless, but these moments do not define you. What defines you is how you choose to respond. Will you allow pain to make you bitter, or will you let it teach you? Will you hide your heart away, or will you open it again, carefully, slowly, and with courage? I learned that healing is not a race. It is a journey, with steps both forward and back. And sometimes, it is simply the choice to keep walking, even when the path is uncertain. My granddaughter once told me I did not understand art. At the time, her words stung. But they also pushed me to show her who I really was, beyond the surface. That was a turning point for me. It was the moment I realized I had a voice, a story, and a strength that mattered. If you are listening now, maybe you are facing your own challenges. Maybe you feel misunderstood or doubted by those you love. Please remember, your story is important. Your voice deserves to be heard. You do not need to prove your worth to anyone but yourself. You do not need to carry the burden of others' opinions. You are enough, just as you are. I want you to take a moment now, wherever you are, and breathe deeply. Feel the air filling your lungs, the beating of your heart. Know that in this very moment, you are alive and full of potential. No matter what has happened, no matter what you fear for the future, you have the power to choose. To choose hope, to choose love, to choose yourself. I hope my story has given you a little light for your own path. If it has touched your heart, I ask you kindly to subscribe and join me on this journey of healing and strength, because together we can find courage in connection. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for holding space for my truth. And thank you, most of all, for trusting that you are worthy of your own healing. May you walk forward with grace, courage, and peace. With all my heart, Helen.